Do you identify with the starving artist concept? This is not the case with today's guest, Ashley Riley, a multi-passionate and creative soul that shares with us how she's monetizing all her multiple talents and how she deals with fear every time she has to sing and perform in front of an audience. Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Vasallo. And each week, I will bring you amazing guests so that you can tap into the courage to break out of old patterns and live your soul's purpose. Before we get into this episode, if by the end you enjoyed it, please follow, rate, review, and share the podcast so we can reach more people. Because here's the thing, I'm on a mission to close the gender gap in the podcasting world so that more and more women's voices are heard. If you feel that this is something you value too, then please take action by rating, reviewing, following, and sharing the podcast. We can only do this together. Check out the link in the show notes to see how this is done. And make sure to stay until the end to claim some free gifts I have for you. We have Ashley Riley here with us today. And Ashley, tell us a little bit about your story and how you've landed to where you're at today.
Okay, let's see where to begin. Well, I guess I'll just tell you a little bit about who I am right now and then maybe kind of go backwards a bit. So my name's Ashley Riley and I am a singer-songwriter, and I'm also a mom and a wife and a hairstylist. So I do a lot of things actually. And I'm just also getting ready to launch a podcast. So I would say that I live a pretty creative life, and everything that I do has a bit of creativity kind of in it. And I've been a hairstylist as far as, I think I'm celebrating 20 years right now. So it's been a perfect career for me as I've been building my songwriting journey and my journey as an artist, and then has allowed me to really be flexible with my family life and everything that I have been building.
Tell us a little bit about, because I want to dissect a little bit this whole idea of being an artist and having this career as an artist, because I do believe it requires a lot of courage to get into that arena. My background was an art director in New York City, so I've been around a lot of artists. I've been in that world. And sometimes I feel like as art directors and copywriters and advertising, it's almost like that fear of like, oh, I don't want to jump and just be an artist. So let me find something that's somewhat artistic, but then your art just gets killed from every little angle because you have the creative directors and the clients and everyone has an opinion on everything that you're birthing. So I'd like to hear a little bit. Tell us, for anyone that's listening, because I do believe we are all creatives. I believe every human being is creative. It's just some of us have taken advantage and enhanced that more, and others haven't. And for those that do ooze creativity, whether they do it as a hobby or whether they're attempting to do it as a career, tell us about your journey, like let's dissect that a little bit. And, what were the fears? What were the obstacles that showed up, especially as a stylist, as a songwriter? Like, it seems like you've touched on different arenas. Tell us a little bit about that.
So when I think about it, I know that I was really nervous when I first started getting out and performing, but I think I just I was obsessed with singing and creating, and I just wanted to do it. Like, as little as 8 years old, I remember like wandering around my backyard and singing into like the fence post because it had a really good reverb. It like echoed, and I thought, I was like, that was so cool. I was such a weird little child. My parents are like, just let her go. She's out there just singing around. But so, I mean, I just always had that kind of, I think maybe for me, it was something that was soothing and I enjoyed it. It made me happy. And so, as you get older, I always laugh. Everyone says like, follow your dreams. You can do whatever you want. But then your dream is like, I'm going to be a singer. And it's like, well, let's be reasonable, like let's have a backup plan. And so, I went to beauty school, and it wasn't until I got married and my husband bought me a guitar because he knew, he was like that I wanted to write songs. And so I instantly started writing songs. I learned like 5 chords and just started writing music. And then I would sit at home and be like, I wish I could get a show, and it was just one little thing that would build upon the next. And so then I got brave enough to like book a show on Valentine's Day singing at a local restaurant. And so then, I told all my friends come out, and it was really fun. And over the years, I really do think that creativity is like a muscle. At least I like to think of it that way. And so the more that you flex it, the stronger it gets. And the nervousness goes away. And then sometimes it just becomes the way of life, and then the next thing that scares you, you look back and you're like, wow, I used to be scared to do this and now I'm over here. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, let's dive deeper into that. I used to be scared, and then you kind of it's almost like you take it to the next level. That's how I usually
Yeah.
see fear. When you look back in time now, like, can you share with us a couple of those scary moments? Are there
Mhm.
maybe like 2 or 3 pivotal scary moments, but you still did it? Because as a musician, you have to be
Yeah.
out in public, public speaking or public
Yeah.
singing, if you want to, can be one of the biggest fears, besides taxes and
Mhm.
death. That's what they say with public speaking.
Yeah.
So take us back to one of those moments in your life, and how scary was it, and what kind of things did you do to calm yourself down and just
Yeah.
overcome that fear and take it to the next level? Because I feel like there's always going to be fears showing up.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's really true. I would say some of the scariest times for me, but have been when I've been performing on like live TV, even if it's just, like a regional show or a radio show or something, because it's like you get one shot at that and it's live
Oh,
TV. So it's weird because it's also like there's no one there. It's like an empty studio. So it doesn't feel live, but you know that it's on TV. So yeah, those kind of moments I would get. I used to like drive to a show and be like like, nervous the whole time that my voice was going to give out, or like, what am I going to say? And I think that things that have helped me would be realizing that my fear is actually excitement. I've like,
yes.
it's kind of the same feeling, but I'm like, no, I'm nervous, but it's because I want to do a good job, because I'm excited about this. And so that's something that I use to just like reframe. But
Mm-hmm.
I do breathing exercises, or sometimes I'll
Ooh.
listen to like calming music instead
Well,
of
can you share with us? There's so many little bits in here that are so nuggets that are great. I love that you're saying fear is excitement. I've always felt the same way with that, because I do consider myself a pretty courageous person. If not, I wouldn't
Mhm.
be having this, business and brand around the courage to be. But so we're on the same wavelength in that
Yeah.
sense. And I've always said that fear and excitement just show up in the same way. It's the same feeling in the body. So I
Yeah.
love that you're saying that. And I think it's important that we make emphasis on it, because I think a lot of people feel like, oh, just you'll get over the fear, you'll dissolve the fear, you're fearless. I'm like, fear doesn't go away. Fear is still going to be there. But I love that you just said, I reframe it and I say
Totally.
it's like excitement. But I'd love to hear a little bit about the breathing exercises, because what fear is really doing is just activating our nervous system. And
Mhm.
so, how do we calm that nervous system down? And I'd love to hear what you're doing with your breathing techniques. Like, what kind of breathing do you do?
One thing that I do is I think it's called the surrender breath, where you take a
Uh
really
huh.
deep inhale, and when you exhale, you actually sigh. So, and that sound is actually a signal to your brain that you can relax. Another thing, so I'll do a couple of those. I usually start with those and do, 3 or 4 until I feel it start to affect me. Another thing that I had read is that, when you're scared, people will like, that quick intake of breath. So if you actually breathe in longer than you exhale, So I like will count in for like 4 to 8 counts, maybe sometimes start at 4 and then work up to breathing in for 8, holding it for
Mhm.
8, and then breathing out for the same amount of time. That's another technique that I use to help calm
That's
me down.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, anything that can help, because we're all going to encounter fear. We all encounter fear at some
Mhm.
point in our lives, whether it's big fears, smaller fears, they're there. So
Yeah.
what can we do to cope with it and make it easier for all of us? And what
Mm.
about music? I mean, obviously you're very in touch with music, but you say, what kind of music do you like listening? Just calming music,
Yeah, calming
meditation music?
music. I also really like, what is it called? The singing bowls, like crystal bowls and singing
Yeah.
bowls. Sometimes I'll just like, I don't really have anything that I particularly listen to. I'll just like get on Apple Music and I'll put in like meditation music or singing bowls. Or there's also, I'm really starting to get interested in like the frequency tones, where they say
Mhm.
there's like a certain frequency tone that like is for love and for calming. And so sometimes I'll just like Google like frequency tone music and then I'll just pick one. So
Ooh,
I have
that's
a lot to learn
awesome.
about that. I'm not sure exactly what it all means, but each sound string of a guitar is a certain frequency. And so I think it's the same with the music.
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you for that tip. And let
Hmm.
me ask you about any other moments in your journey where you felt that fear and just did it anyway, or
Yeah, let me think. I mean, a lot of it. I always have that exciting fear anytime before I perform. What's interesting to me is that when I'm performing in front of people that I know, I'm more nervous. You would think that it would be the
mm,
opposite. You would
yeah.
think that it'd be like, I know these people, they're my friends, my family. And so like you would feel more relaxed, but I'm actually the opposite. And I'm like, well, that means I just care that much more. So I don't
Why
know.
do you think that happens to you? Because I don't think you're alone on that.
I mean, now, as I just now said that to you, I, for the first time, had a thought that it's probably, the whole thing about wanting to be liked and accepted, being a people pleaser type. Hmm.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to that. Or the fear of being judged. I think
Yeah.
that's a big one too for any entrepreneur that's starting their business, that's been in business, and just having to get visible, like you have to
Hmm.
get out there and people have to know about what you do or what your message is. And you're already doing it in a natural way or automatic way by singing.
Hmm.
But for those that have never really practiced that, like going live, it's a huge fear, of like, I don't want to put myself out there because what if my family sees it, or what if my friends see it and they don't like me and I get kicked out of the tribe? I mean, that's just like basic
Right.
instincts, So
Yeah.
that's a great one to notice. And as you're going on stage, okay, so you're going on stage, and ideally would be that it's not family and friends or that you can't see
Yeah.
them so that you don't know that they showed up.
Yeah.
As you're preparing, tell us a little bit how that preparedness, how you're preparing right before, like the minutes before stage. Is that when you're doing the breathing and listening to calming music, or does that happen like an hour before, or like what are
Yeah.
the phases?
Well, honestly, usually for most things, I have to drive, it's a drive to get to the venue or whatever. And so that's when I'll do the calming music, and I'll do a vocal warm up also. So usually it's like vocal warm up and calming music, and then just kind of sometimes I'll just sit in my car for a few minutes and gather myself before I go in, because then once I go in somewhere to perform, then I really am kind of, networking, meeting people and having to, yeah, just try to connect and find out where I'm supposed to be and getting my gear set up. And so then I kind of go into the mode of like performer already, because you're really just there to do a job. So it's kind of the way before. If I do have some quiet time before, yeah, I might listen to some music or just try to distract myself so that I don't get too in my head, or make a set list. And yeah, so every show is different, but I do feel like The nervousness comes like right before you do it. And then it's one of those things where I don't know if you've ever had like an annoying pain or something, and then you can, it's like all you can think about, but then you go to work or you're doing something else and you're like, oh, I didn't feel that all day until then you got done again. It's kind of like a little bit, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, the most I've done, I definitely am not a singer, but I have spoken on stages and on big stages. And there's all I've heard too from like big performers, they all get nervous, even if it's just
Mhm.
like the first 5 seconds as you're stepping onto stage.
Yeah.
I was even hearing Mel Robbins talk about that. I think she was saying, but anyway, you do feel those butterflies in your stomach. You feel that a little bit of that fear slash excitement,
Mhm.
because you can interpret it however you want. And I was just curious as a performer, because you're doing that more often, if that's still there, no matter how many performances you've done
Yeah,
in your life.
I think so. This might be a little bit odd, but for me, I'm usually not nervous to sing and play my guitar. What I'm nervous about is in between the songs when I have to talk. That's what I get more nervous about. And so that's one thing that I'll tell stories about the songs or like talk a little bit about myself and to feel connected to the audience. I want to bring them in to the performance and so that they're paying attention to me. And so otherwise, you're just up there singing. And anyway, I like to have that whole experience with the room. And so I get nervous about that, about what am I going to say? And, so sometimes I don't really script anything. I'll just have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. But I have found like the best way to mitigate that for myself is to actually be a little bit self-deprecating and like use humor, something like that, tell a funny story. Like there's a song that I have that has a funny line, well, not a funny line, but it says, I've been wasting my day sleeping in and staying up late. And my son, who is now 10, but he heard the song, we were driving around in the car, I'm listening to the demo, and he's like, Mommy, did you write that song? And I said, yeah, that's mine. And he goes, I thought so. That's true. About,
That's awesome.
staying up too late. And it's just kind of funny. I'll just try to tell stories like that maybe people can relate to. But that's the part that gets me more nervous than actually performing the songs. I don't know
And
why.
how do you handle it? Do you start speaking faster? Do you try and pace yourself? Do you try
Yeah,
and
I
have like an
probably
outline?
do. I probably trip over my words a little bit, to be honest, but I just make myself do it anyway. I think that's like a constant theme in my life is, feel the fear, but like do it anyway because I can't
Yes,
not. You know what I mean? I don't want to wish that I did.
that is so great. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And I know it might sound like cliche, but that's the bottom line. You can't like avoid the fear. You can't make it go away. So tell me about some moments in your life. Let's shift gears a little bit, but it's still related of when you're feeling this fear and you're doing it anyway, and then you have a failure and it doesn't go according to how you expected it. What do you do, Ashley? How do you handle that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some experiences like that where I've had a show that I thought was going to be, really well attended and like not that many people show up. And I mean, I will say it in times like that, you're like, oh, I mean, it's a little embarrassing. It kind of shakes your
Mm-hmm.
confidence. You feel
Yeah.
like crap. But, you know, in those moments, the last the last show like that I can remember, I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, should I even bother? Should I even bother? Like this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Like, why should I do this? And I decided, you know what? I'm a professional. I'm going to be here for the people that are here. Some people showed up, I'm going to show up. And so I did. And I was really proud of myself because I felt like, regardless, I just felt like I did the best that I could. And I felt like I connected with those few people that came to the show that I was disappointed that there weren't more people. I will say that when I went home that night, I was like, in a weird mood. I had highs and lows. I'm like, I knew I did the best job. I knew I had a great show, but I was like, my feelings were hurt, I felt
Wow.
bad. I felt, and I just had to kind of think to myself, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want validation, or am I doing this because I love it? And so coming back to your why, I think a lot is big for me, because when you're putting yourself out in the creative space, not everything's going to be everyone's cup of tea. You can't please everybody all the time, but as long as you're proud of yourself and you're doing something that you're proud of, I think that's what counts.
That is huge. Again, so many nuggets in there. Like, first of that, you can't please anyone. I'm just going to go backwards on everything you've said, because as women, I think many of us have been raised in that space of being the people pleasers, stay quiet, stay small, don't rock the boat, make sure
Yeah.
everyone's comfortable, make sure everyone has everything they need, whether it's parents, whether it's kids, whether it's husbands, wives, whatever people are in your life. And it's such a great reminder that we can't please everyone. And we
Right.
really do have to ask ourselves that question, like, why am I doing this? And take care of ourselves. It's like that example of the oxygen mask, when they say put
Mm-hmm.
on the, moms, put on the oxygen mask before you put it on your kids. And you're like, no, my kid needs it before me. But that's the truth. You're so right about that, of just realizing, and your sense of self-awareness with that, in that particular case. So I just wanted to point that out. And also, when you were mentioning this particular scenario, which I think all of us have had at some point,
Yeah.
anyone that has put themselves out there
Yes.
has stories of one person showing up and no people showing up, my mom being the only one showing up, whatever
Yeah.
the case is, we all started somewhere. And I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable about it, because
Yeah.
in this day and age, I feel like they're between social media, which we live like these edited lives of ourselves, like, look how great, look how successful,
Mm-hmm.
overnight success. And like, everything has always been,
Right.
the color of roses, whatever, however that expression is in English. I don't think it's like that. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like, we're just
Uh-huh.
painting it all this beautiful life. And I actually just read an article yesterday about this woman that wrote an art. She was doing a book signing. I can't remember where, did the book signing. I think 37 people were going to show up, said that they were going, and only 2 people came to the book signing. And she was
Wow.
devastated. It's a little bit
Yeah.
similar to what you're saying, Ashley, because she's like, well, why the 37 said they were going and then only 2 showed up? And so she posted it in her Twitter account, just wrote, like, I'm pretty bummed. She was just sharing, like, this happened to me. And suddenly overnight, I just loved this story. For anyone that's been putting anything out there, has had a failure, things didn't go according to plan, or whatever your expectations
Yeah.
were, everyone started writing in, and suddenly her Twitter account went to over 12,000 followers and comments.
Wow.
Uh, what's the writer from Stephen King wrote
Oh,
in, like,
wow.
all these different, like, famous authors were telling their own stories of failure and of people not showing up to book signings and different things. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I don't think you realize the impact of just sharing that little story can have on anyone that's listening.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you on that note too, I'm sure you've heard Steve Jobs' commencement speech where he talks about connecting the dots, and that we cannot connect the dots looking forward, but we can only connect the dots looking backwards. So now that time has gone by, can you connect the dots? Like, what do you think were the gifts that you got out of that gig, not having as many people as you wanted,
Yeah.
that there were only 2 or 3 people? What was a gift in that for you, or what was the connecting of the dots for you?
Yeah. Honestly, it was pretty like a defeated feeling in the moment. It really was. And that, I think I saw that article too. It was really inspiring. I think that stuff is powerful when you share about, when things don't go as planned. For me, I feel like I needed to have that experience, to be honest, to kind of connect me back again to my why and why I'm doing this, and whether or not it's something that I want to keep pursuing, because it's really easy to get caught up in social media posts and,
Mhm.
different things like that. I love social media because you can really connect with a lot of people instantly, and you can share your work in places where normally you wouldn't have the opportunity, but at the same time, sometimes that starts to feel like the job instead of, writing the songs and doing the art and doing the thing. And I think I had really been focusing a lot more of my attention on that than on what I actually wanted to create. And so having that horrible show, I wallowed for a bit. I mean, in the moment, I was really proud of how like I said, I was like, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do here. So I was proud of myself for that, but, had kind of a feel sorry for myself weekend and made some art out of it too, wrote
Wow,
some
that's
new songs.
awesome.
And so, you know, um, yeah.
How long do you have a time frame for your pity parties? I call them pity parties,
Yeah.
when I go through that.
Totally. I don't like to be like that for more than a day or two because it's kind of exhausting. You know? It's
That's great. And I love that you're sharing that too. I think we should be able to talk more about these things,
yeah.
of like just our failures of expectation. Because here's another
Mhm.
thing, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about it. I think sometimes we make it about ourselves. Not
Mhm.
sometimes, a lot of times, I'd say we make it about ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure your train of thought at that moment was, I'm not good enough. Why
Mhm.
am I even doing this? I mean, what other thoughts went through
Yeah.
your mind? Because I could share with you what goes through my mind. And then, like,
Yeah,
what were
I
some of the
mean,
thoughts for you?
totally that, like, I guess what I'm doing doesn't matter, like,
Mm,
this doesn't mean anything to people, and also, like that article, I'm like, "Why did X amount of people say they were coming?" Like, "Why even hit, 'Yes, I'm coming,' if you're not coming?" Like, um, yeah, but yeah, you make it about you, and it's like, I think it's called spotlight syndrome, where you're like, "Well, it's about me.
ooh.
Everything's." Yeah, totally did that, totally was like, I should just quit. I'm not good, you take it personal.
It
Mm.
is, and I can so relate to that. That's why I was asking, like, what were some of your thoughts? Because I know anyone that's listening can relate to this. For
Mhm.
me, it's like I might do like a launch, or maybe I have a work. Like, I used to do live events, and there was always like this anxiety of like, who's going to show up? Who signed up? Who's coming? Like,
Yeah.
and then if they didn't show up, and the same thing, and if it was a certain number, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. They didn't like it. Da, 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 and you just on and on it goes, fill in the blank with
Mm.
all of that. But sometimes we have to remember that it really is not about our, I mean, there's certain things that are about ourselves, but even if you sucked at something, like say you were horrible at my event, like if I'm doing an event or someone's a singer that's like, just the music's not like mainstream music or something,
Yeah.
there's always an audience. I'm a big believer that there's always an audience. You have a certain energy that you resonate, that you attract other people into that world. So that's one component, but there's also the component of actual statistics and numbers and facts, like, was it a
Mhm.
rainy night when you did this? Of the people that, when you send out an invitation, like when you send out for a party that you could do at your home or a wedding, they say that usually 20% of people will say no, that won't show up. So you'll send the invites, but 20%.
Right.
So that's out of your hands. Like, if we could reflect, and I'm just saying this out loud, even for myself to hear, because I do make it personal too sometimes, when
Mhm.
I hear certain things. I'm much better though at bouncing back much faster. And so now it's kind of like, oh, I look at it as an experiment. In your case, I would have been like, I did this. only these amount of people showed up. What was that all about? Okay, let me
Oh,
look at this. Was it that the emails go out on time? That the people that said that they were coming, was that 20% of the people that didn't show up? Like, let's really
mhm.
look at the facts before making it all about me being horrible and that I should
Right.
just quit. Because I
Yeah,
think as women, we tend to do that a lot.
we
It's
do. Yeah, I agree for sure. Totally.
we make it so emotional. And then, okay, so shifting gears with this, I want to tap into a little bit of your creativity. You
Mhm.
have all these different sides to you. Tell us a little bit about your podcast that's coming out, that you have
Yeah.
going on. What's it
Yeah.
called?
It's called Made of Dreams, and it actually the name of the podcast is also the name of a song that I wrote called Made of Dreams, and
You want to
it was
sing us a
on
little bit of it?
I would maybe. It's actually the I'm like, let me clear my throat, do my breathing exercises and listening to some calming music. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's going to be the theme song for my podcast. So I just re-recorded it. I put it out about 10 years ago, and I just went through some phases where, you're always like promoting the last thing. Anyway, I was doing some writers' nights and everyone kept loving the song Made of Dreams. It kind of got me back in that mode again and re-recorded it. But my podcast is really it's a bit of a lifestyle podcast mixed with some creativity because I want to talk to people who are following their dreams and doing, chasing down what they want to do and everything in between because I don't think that's the whole person. So I want to inspire people to be creative on their own. Like you said, I think everyone's creative, I really do. And so I want to inspire people who are like, I could never do that to maybe try, because
Mhm.
even if you don't make a living at it, if it makes you happy, I think it's worth it. And I think it's worth it because it makes people around you inspired to maybe do something as well. I've noticed that a lot in my career that even if like my friends, I don't know, I've just had a lot of people that are like, well, how do you do this? And what, how did you, and what should I, and it's like, I'm just like, I don't know, I just did it. Like, you should do it too. And then maybe they start to do it. And some people come out and then they have a band and they play shows. And I just think that it's like, get it, pass it on, get it, pass it on. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I also want to talk about random things that I'm interested in, like crystal singing bowls or zodiac signs or just anything
Uh-huh.
anything like that. So lifestyle and creativity mixed together.
I love it. And do you see with do you only have one son or do you have more
Yeah.
kids? One
Mhm.
son. How is he creative? Do you get to play
It
with him
really
a lot?
is. I
Yeah.
do. And what I love, we actually, I don't know when this will air, but we just released a Christmas single. It's a cover of George Michael's Last Christmas, and my son
Oh,
he played bells on it for me, which was really cool. I encourage him to be creative, and I try to get him into my shenanigans as often as possible, to be honest. So I think it's really cool.
that's awesome. So that you can keep on passing the creativity,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
doing that and just playing. I think it's so important to connect with children, and
Yeah.
kids and because I feel like they're more connected with that playful side.
Oh,
And when we
totally.
start getting so serious and responsible as an adult, it gets a little bit
Hmm.
more complicated. How would you encourage creativity in those adults, like you're saying, that don't consider themselves creatives or have maybe abandoned their own dreams?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times if people asking me questions like that, I feel like they have some curiosity and they want some permission. You know what I mean? So I
Mm,
feel like I just give them permission by sheer like encouragement. I don't even really have to tell them what to do. I just get to encourage people. And then that's one thing that I've noticed. Like if people are curious about being creative because I think everyone has that little yearning to do something cool. We just want to make something or like express ourselves. And so
express.
I think a lot of times it's already there and you're just giving people permission. So I'm like, oh, you should, honestly, I just encourage. That's really what I do.
That is awesome. Do you have any recent stories of anyone that
Mhm.
you talked to that was kind of scared, but then they tried something and poof, something beautiful emerged from it?
Well, I have a couple to be continued stories with my podcast. I have a couple friends who I'm like, I would love to talk to you. And they're nervous, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I could really be interviewed or be on a podcast.
Oh,
And so they've scheduled interviews with me. I'm like, yes, we can
yay.
do it. Well, so to be continued. But no, I've just noticed that really with a lot of musician friends in the past about, people that have maybe hung up their guitars and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I used to do that. I'm gonna get my guitar back out," or, stuff like that. So
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think it's so needed. What stood out for me as you were saying that, Ashley, was it's permission, it's the curiosity, because we all have it, and as well as expression. I feel like we are so bombarded going back to social media and for like it's just we live in an era of information bombardment. I mean, we're
Mhm.
just intaking, whether it's TV, whether it's social media, whether it's internet, where it is, but there's so much information being taken in
Yeah.
that we don't give ourselves an opportunity to kind of do the cocktail mix in our head and our brain and our
Mhm.
mind and our soul to then express, because that's where I think the majority of creativity comes from. It's just like, oh, I got inspired by this. Oh, I got inspired by that. Oh, I got inspired by that song. I got inspired by this movie. I got inspired by this traveling from this
Yeah.
trip. And then you combine it all and then poof, out comes your song or your beautiful hairstyle or however you're
Yeah.
expressing like it could be with writing, it could be with photography, it could be with whatever it is. So I'm
Mhm.
curious, do you carve out time for self-expression? Like, does that always come? Has that been natural for you?
I think so. Yeah, I don't have a certain practice that I do, but I just give
Mhm.
myself a lot of time. So sometimes I'll just pick up my guitar with the intention of writing a song, but I just end up singing for an hour and playing songs that I love, and I just let myself do what I need to do, but I have the time set aside. And so sometimes instead, maybe I go for a walk or maybe I'll meditate or, you know, for a while during 2020, which was, a crazy year for a lot of people, I didn't really want to write songs a lot because it just seemed there was so much going on in the world that I just was like, I need to just process. But so during that time, I actually painted some stuff, which isn't something I normally do, but it was like I needed to do something because I feel like I personally will have this energy that I need to like release. And maybe,
Mhm.
yeah, so I do give myself the time and
So
then,
how do you do that though, Ashley? Because for busy moms,
mhm,
and busy people, I feel like most of us tend to be in that busy category. And also because just culture tends to honor and, praise those that are busy, and productive
yeah,
and efficient and going and doing. How do you allocate time? Like, do you put it into your calendar or does
I
it just,
do.
oh, you do. Tell
I
me more
do.
about that, please.
Yeah, I mean, so well, with my business as a hairstylist, I still keep a day planner. So I have, every 15 minutes blocked out. And so I have my days that I'm working behind the chair, and then I have days where I'm working on recording. And so I have certain days of the week that I do different things. And usually on a day that I'm actually working in the salon, I'm not being creative per se. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm being creative with my work, but it's, at a
Not
business.
personally. Yeah.
Yeah. And so on the days that I have set aside for recording, luckily that work is creative. But so sometimes I'll just schedule like an hour in the morning, or I try to have a morning routine. Like I'll give myself 2 hours to get ready on days that I am scheduled to do podcast recording or creating or anything like that. I give myself some time in the morning, and that's when I will meditate or do whatever I want to do. And then, um, that's my creative.
So important. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that, because I think that's one of the secret sauces, of just being able to be successful, being able to Because here's what I think happens, and correct me if you think differently, but when we live in a society and in a culture where there's only bombardment of information, like I was saying, and we don't get to express, we start to repress. And so that repression starts turning into depression and anxiety. And then we're just unexpressed beings. And we do, going back to where we started, that all human beings are creative. And whatever that looks like to you, whether it's, like we said, writing or cooking or painting or doing ceramics, whatever form it is, like creativity comes in so many different shapes and forms. Do you feel that if you didn't have that space to allow for expression, that where you carve that time out, that your life would look very differently?
Yeah, I do. I think that I would be sad. I think I would probably have some of that depression. And also, I do want to say, like, I don't pride myself on being super busy anymore. Like, that's a thing that I've let go of, because I will tell you, I owned a salon for about 6 years and I had employees that worked for me, and I was miserable after a while. Like, at first it was really fun and I was enjoying it and thinking, like, you know, that, yeah, at first it was fun and I enjoyed it. And then all of a sudden it was too much work. It was, it wasn't my dream. I actually just was like, oh, I'm really organized and I'm good at managing things. I could own a business, and I'm glad that I did it. I learned so much about business because it was very helpful. I am a business owner still, but just one that only employs myself, really.
Yes.
Yeah, so I actually, I had to make a hard choice and sell the salon, which, it was like a weight off of my shoulders, and I was working myself into the ground and not having that time, and it did affect me. And so, yeah, I definitely learned that the hard way. I stuck with it longer than I should have, because I thought that's what you do, you're like, I committed to this. And so, yeah, that was something that, like I said, I did it for 6 years, and probably for half of it, I
You
wanted
shouldn't have.
out.
Yeah. That I can relate to that too. When I was in corporate, I left the last job I was at 2 years too late. Did it lead to burnout to you? Because wow, your level of self-awareness with that and being able to let go of it. And
Yeah.
I love that you've decided that you are not busy anymore. Wait, there's so many things to
I
unpack
know.
here.
Well, all of the things that I've learned the hard way. Not really, but honestly, that experience led to a lot of the self-awareness that I have, and a lot of the techniques, like learning how to be in the moment and how to calm down and not feed into the fear and stuff, because I needed that. So yeah, before I sold the business, I was having like panic attacks, and different things like that weren't normal for me. So it definitely affected me, and I had to learn coping skills, and I needed to sell the business, and I finally did. It was like, okay, choose yourself. So that's what I had to do.
That
Mhm.
is huge. Did this happen? Because I know you had at some point in your journey when you gave birth to your son, you had some health issues. Was that at the same time or at completely different times? Can you
It
tell us a little
was.
bit about that?
Yeah, so I had my son in 2012, and after I had him, so I think I had owned the business, let's see, for a couple years before he came along, and then I started to have panic attacks after I went back to work. And let me think. There was just like a lot of different things that all added up to, I was having symptoms of like hyperthyroidism, which is something that I learned is really, really common in America. And so I think mine was brought on by stress. It can be brought on by like a lot of life changes or chronic stress, or we're learning a lot about like fight or flight these
Fight or
days.
flight. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of was dealing with that for a while, trying to just manage it and notice my symptoms, like what things were causing. I would have like random aches and pains. My skin was horrible, panic attacks. But I also during that time was one of those people that I was like, I'm not gonna I'm not going to let this affect me. I'm going to
Mm,
power through. So I still didn't slow down. I was like, I am having panic attacks, so I'm going out. I'm going to go what everything I want to do, I'm doing the opposite, which in one way helped me to not get into a depression, but in another sense it wasn't. And I also was having like hot flashes. There's this a whole list of things. But when I finally
mhm.
realized I was having hyperthyroidism and had to get treated for that, so I took a radioactive pill, which essentially kind of kills your thyroid to slow it down. It's really the only way to do it. Well, actually, it's not, but it's the way that the medical community tells you to do it. So
Mhm.
I had monitored my symptoms for a couple years, and then I ended up doing that because it wasn't getting any better. But before they did that, they found a growth on my thyroid, which was not cancerous, but it was like kind of large. So they're like, we'll just watch this. And so then, took the pill, waited a couple years, and then still was having all kinds of symptoms and issues. Like it didn't really fix anything like they said it would. And come to find out that that growth had gotten really large. It was about the size of a plum, I would say, and
Wow.
it was like in my neck. So I had to have half of my thyroid taken out. And it was a whole health journey that created a lot of like hypervigilance, if you will. So just like then I was always on guard. I was always like, if I would feel an ache or pain, I was nervous about it. And so yeah, during that time, I just had to let the business go and had to like choose my health and prioritize that. And because of that, then became really self-aware about a lot of things and decided that I didn't want to go back to being busy like that. So
That is awesome. I love that you made that decision. So many of us
yeah.
could apply that, and I think you're leading the way with it. Sorry to hear that it had to take a health issue to
Yeah.
get you there, but you're not alone. There's thousands, if not millions of women in this country. And I don't even know what the statistics would be around the world that we have just driven ourselves to burnout and then to health
Mhm.
issues because we haven't
Yeah.
handled it. If just the power through, like you're saying, go through it, badge of honor, look
Get
how
up. Yeah.
tough. Yeah. And we
Mhm.
need to start shifting that paradigm and that
Yeah.
way of thinking. This is wow, Ashley. Well, I could keep on talking for hours with you and just keep on asking you more questions.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? How can we get to know you more and get
Yeah.
into your world?
Well, the best place to find me is my website. It's ashleyriley.com. And from there, I have all the links to any of the music that you would want to hear. And I've got
Yay.
my social channels, and it will link to my podcast when that drops. But I do have a madeofdreamspodcast.com that is brand new. So you can check that out.
Nice.
That'll be the
That's
place to go.
wonderful. So yeah, anyone listening, you can hop over to Ashley's podcast too, Made of Dreams. They overlap, as you can see, and I'm sure you're going to have wonderful guest speakers on your podcast that we can hear about their stories too. And as we're wrapping up, I have one last question for you, which is, what's one thing our listeners can do to live a life with more courage?
Let me think. A life with more courage. I would say to live a life with more courage, think about if there's something that you really want to do. I would maybe, one thing that I like to do is if there's something that I want to do, but I'm too nervous to do it, I tell someone that I want to do it. Because
Mm.
I think putting it out there kind of gets it into the universe. And then also it holds me a bit accountable, but you have to tell the right person. Tell somebody who's going to like encourage you. So that's a
That's
good.
a great piece of
Mhm.
advice. Thank you for that one. I
Yeah.
agree 100%. I do that all the time too. And I love that you put that like asterisks on it, like tell the right person, because you
Yeah.
don't want to be telling the wrong person that's just like riding you and, you said,
Yeah.
but also tell the right person where it doesn't give you permission to get out of it,
Yeah.
to excuse it and
Uh-huh.
not do it. I think it's very important to have that accountability, like just putting it
Mhm.
out there into the world. I agree 100%. Wow, Ashley, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for being
thank you.
here. You've got an amazing energy, and I can feel within your energy too, the letting go of that busyness, like you just emanate that. I'm like, yes, thank you for
Thank you.
just being in that pace. I really, really appreciate. Thank you for being here and sharing with us your time and your wisdom.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.